Hello and welcome to Community Forum. This is Joseph Feaster. I'm the host of the program, and I have a special program today because I will be interviewing another host of Community Forum. But before I do that, I want to talk about two things. One, I want to talk about this is the inaugural, if you will. This isn't Zoom. This is Google GoToMeet session of Community Forum. And I think not only Community Forum, this is the first episode that's been done by SMAC at all. So with my fellow host of Community Forum, we have the first opportunity to do a program virtually. Secondarily, I am truly honored to be able to have been asked by Steve Kelley in order to do this interview. And I find that an honor to be able to do that not only to a friend, an entrepreneur, a dad, a husband, and a friend, that be able to do this interview. And certainly during this time with the COVID-19, I'm hopeful that all of you that are watching us are safe and healthy, and that you have not experienced persons within your life who have been afflicted by coronavirus. So with that, I want to welcome my good friend and the author who I'm going to be speaking with today, Steve Kelley. He should be no stranger to most of you who are viewing the program today, simply because he's been a great host on Community Forum for a bunch of years. Let me tell you a little bit about him anyway, because I want to take this opportunity because this interview may go viral worldwide, and I want to make sure that I give it the justice that it deserves. And so let me do that. Let me tell you a little bit about Steve. Steve is a successful entrepreneur. He's a real estate developer. He's a professor and a personal coach. He has also trained for triathlete. A triathlon, I guess I should say. He's a public speaker, local talk show host, and volunteers for a number of charities. Just really a great person all around. But nonetheless, he has had his health challenges over the years. He had a devastating brain tumor, central nervous system lymphoma, and a stem cell transplant in 2018 to 2019. But what we're going to talk about today is really a celebration and fulfills his 25-year goal to help others improve their lives by focusing on positive energy. So notwithstanding his own issues, Steve wants to be able to help others to get over barriers, to look at things in a positive way, and that's what we're going to do this. He had a fear of public speaking, even though, he overcame that with the many interviews he has done. And as I mentioned, he also has been a host on Community Forum for many, many, many years. He will hopefully be working on a third book, because this is his second one, and we'll talk about both of his books during this time. But he wants to write a book addressing his recovery from cancer. And that's something we'll talk about, and he'll elaborate on that. But his first book was a co-authored children's book with his granddaughter, Ellie Dubois, The Fox Who Sneezed. Steve lives in Sharon, and he lives in a multi-generational home of his own design with his wife, kids, and children. As I mentioned, he has a number of hobbies and things he's done. He's done a triathlon. He has break dancing. I love that. Summer ice fishing. And of course, he makes sure he takes care of his health going forward. Let me welcome my good friend, fellow host on Community Forum, the distinguished author and entrepreneur, Steve Kelley. Welcome, Steve.
Well, thank you, Joe. I hope I can live up to that billing. My goodness.
Well, in terms of it's, as they say, it's the resume your mother wrote. So understandably, it was going to be brilliant, but it really gives hopefully our viewing audience a sense of who you are as a person. I like to always start a program so they know the person, then we can talk about the accomplishments. And I can say to them unabashedly, you're a great human being and much appreciated as a friend. So let's get right to the meat of it. Let's talk about, this is book number 2, Break the Curse, Template for Change, written by Steve Kelley. Talk about, the book, and especially about the title. How did you come up with the title, Steve? And why don't you give us some sense of what the content of the book is as well?
Oh, thank you, Joe, for this opportunity, and thank you, Stoughton Media Access Cable. That's very nice of them to give us this opportunity. So Break the Curse is the title we ended up coming to after a period. I wanted to share with people how I overcame the obstacles in my life. I had a rough start, and a lot of things happened along the way. My house burned down, various things. And each of those things I've had to really learn to become positive to overcome the obstacles in my way. And given the success, I mean, I'm not Bill Gates, let's say, but I've had very good success, and I'd like to share how I did that. And so we came up with the title that whatever the curse is, whether it's COVID-19, whether it's poverty, whether it's racism, there are all kinds of curses that people are dealing with, things that really feel like someone intended to injure them. And I really don't want people to feel that those are inescapable. I want them to feel that they can overcome those and break the curse. I give a 10-step, here's how you can do it. And it's exactly what I did in my life.
Well, again, whenever I do something with you, in fact, I didn't give all of the title because there's also 10 steps to restart your life. That's a subscript of the title as well. But as I always do, I have to prepare when I'm going to have you on, Steve, because I want to make sure that we give our audience all of the thinking and thoughtful pieces that you will be putting in place and trying to communicate this sensitivity that you have. And there were some, I'm not sure what right now, I can't think about what they may call it, but for instance, you talk about there's a left and a right side, or there's the things on the other side of the V. So I'm looking at some of the things that you have. You say something like tolerance versus intolerance, job loss versus planning. Talk to me about, I'm just going to call them these idioms that you have come up with in terms of, because I'm sure they probably shaped the way in which you went about doing the chapters in this particular books. So can you talk about that a little bit? Or if I'm jumping too far ahead, tell me to pause and I will, step back and have us proceed a particular way.
Oh, you are so accommodating, Joe. Thank you. So I think we'd start with, there are many ways to see things, and how we do that, how we convey ideas, how we think about things is more important than people think. We're all very biased, and I actually start the book, Break the Curse, by going into the way you think and asking you to think like a genius. And in doing that, I ask this question. When you look at an aquarium, what do you see? Do you see beautiful marine life, colorful, very amusing? Or do you see animals that have been snatched away from their habitat and then made to stay somewhere else? So those are two different views, and they're biases that we have, and we call that framing. So I talk in the book about how to learn about framing and how much impact it has on our lives. And that's how I start the book, and that's how I started my quote unquote recovery, was to learn how to think better. And I think that people, as you're brought up in any civilization, anywhere in the world, you're very myopic and you just don't realize it. So the first thing that we do is we talk to people about an awakening. And you need to do that, whether it's COVID-19, whether it's unemployment, whether you recognize in yourself, as we all do, maybe don't recognize we have intolerance for various people or various things. And your first step is to recognize that and then turn that around. And so that's what step one in Break the Curse is about, is learning to think like a genius would, not how you were taught in the beginning.
I'm going to come back to some of the operational decisions that you and your team may have made, and also give you a chance to talk about the team. But I'm also intrigued, and I can't wait to get my hands on this book because the essence of what you're saying right now seems to fit within my own purview and my own way that I live my life. So I want to explore that a little bit more. So let's walk us through the chapter chapters so that, and I know that you also have some illustrations that we want to bring up depicting that. Let's walk through the chapters. And I just want to list some of the others so that if we don't get through them, maybe our viewing audience can jot them down and think about them. And maybe when they purchase the book from Amazon, because I'm sure it's going to be there, they'll be able to get it. So beside the tolerance versus intolerance, there was job loss versus making a plan, isolation versus finding mentors, illness versus building immunity, polarization versus compromise, alcoholism, addictions, overeating versus resisting temptation, volunteerism, such as with the mask or donating to business, etc., and rethinking life plans and schedules. These are things that you need to do versus finding your fit. Sometimes you have to rethink what you have to do in these circumstances. Depression versus creativity, loss, lonely, searching versus working on qualities to take charge of your life. So these are life affirming approaches. And you can either be on the left-hand side of the V or the right-hand side of the V, which generally, is the side which is untenable in most instances. Talk about it. Go through those as you wish, using the chapters as you wish, using the illustrations, and in that way, I can just sit back and just relish in whatever you say.
Okay. Well, Joe, that's a wonderful introductory, a wonderful way to get me started. So in Break the Curse, I really do it the way I did it in my own life. So we already spoke about the first step is to change the way you think like a genius. Okay. The second step, we talk about setting goals. And I think we have Mike Hammond, who's the station manager in the background. And I wonder if he could throw up the one of the pictures of Elle, the fairy dust Elle. I wonder if we could see that. And that will tie in with the second chapter, which is setting goals. And I think that would be great. If we don't see it, I'll just continue, and we'll hope that Mike gets that picture up because it's just beautiful. And it shows my granddaughter sort of throwing embers up in a fire. And I almost would think that it's what goals really are. You're just going to try to throw all of your dreams up and try to grab them as they come down, and don't deny yourself dreams. And I think that's very important, that you learn to set goals. And I have a chapter, the second chapter is setting goals. So we move from there to the third chapter, which is finding your mentors, right? Everybody, in my opinion, as you break out of your poor way of thinking that you learned, and some people don't have that poor of a way, but I know I did. So it really required me to find mentors who could tune me up, could make me better than I was. And I write all about my wonderful mentors, Linda Ostrander, who happened to also have written the foreword for the book. And Linda has written 5 books, Journeys for Mothers and Daughters and things like that. A very accomplished composer, a long-standing professor at Cambridge College, just a wonderful woman who pulled me up from the depths of where I was and helped to make, she believed in me and helped to make me who I am, and helped me write this book with her encouragement throughout my life. So that third piece is finding mentors. The fourth piece of Break the Curse is to take care of your body. And it's so important. And I love the quote that we lead that chapter with. It says, take care of your body or else you won't have any place to live. So I just think that's just a darling kind of a very good frame for you to understand that in order to have a long and wonderful life, you really have to take care of the vessel that you live in. And I started to do that. I've met a couple of friends who have really become dear friends who taught me to exercise incredibly hard and try to pull myself from sort of an overeating, easygoing personality. And pictures of me in the past will not hide that very well, that I was overeating. So I'm thrilled that I was able to get into triathlons where I swim, I run, and I bike. And now I have a very steady diet in my life of mountain biking, of swimming, of running, of doing yoga, all things that help me to take care of my body. And I have around me, I've attracted friends that do those things. And I think you cannot deny how important having good friends are, Joe. And I recommend in the book that you find good friends, that you look to people that maybe quote unquote are better than you. Like I think all my friends are better than me. So I think it's the right thing to do. Joe, you yourself, honestly, such a wonderful friend, such a good guide. All the work you do with the Urban League and things like that, Joe, is marvelous. So those are the kind of friends like Joe here that
Well, let
I
me just stop you
hope to
just
get.
for 1 minute because and if you want to talk about this, because I think that we got to put that just what you said in context. Would you be willing to walk folks through your health journey or your health challenge journey? If you don't want to, I can understand. But I think to put it in context where you've come out on the other side is to let folks, because some folks will, because they don't know you, they don't know your story. They'll say, "Oh, well, maybe he had a cold and he's learned how to do it." Well, that's not the case. And I
Well,
think
Joe,
chapter in
thank you.
context, I'd like for you to elaborate.
All right. What a marvelous interview you do, Joe. Thank you. So I just dropped the mouse, but we'll fix that up. So in 2018, I was stricken with something called CNS lymphoma. That is a central nervous system lymphoma, and what it means in layman's terms is I had a giant tumor the size of an avocado in the back of my head. And it translated for me to starting to forget things very early. I lost my balance. I started to lose my sense of taste and things like that I didn't really notice right away. I'm so used to fighting things that I just sort of pushed over everything. I wasn't going to let it get in my way. And one day I was driving home from my work, which is about 6 miles distance. And I crashed into I have almost a perfect driving record, but I crashed into a curbstone in the center of the town where my office is. And I got out and looked at it and said, how did this happen? And as it turned out, I had developed a black sort of stripe. I started to go blind, and that stripe was growing so big. But before it grew big, I had learned to just tilt my head. Like when I wanted to drive, I just look. And if I couldn't see it, look my head around the stripe. And that stripe was like a black belt in my eye. And it slowly started to expand and expand. So between that and losing my memory, at one point I went to get stuff for my family to Lowe's. And 3 hours later, I came back. And they said, what happened? I said, I don't know. So that was part of what I was going through. So we eventually, I kind of hid it from my wife. I probably will get chastised for this interview too. But at one point she said, something's going on. We're taking you to the hospital. And I think it was at that point, actually, I had gotten lost coming home, and it took me 3 hours to go 6 miles. And I don't know why. I couldn't figure it out. So between not being able to see and losing my memory, I couldn't find anything. So I was fortunate enough that the only place in the world, this is what you definitely, Joe, think as God's work, reaching down to me.
Absolutely.
Only place in the world that takes care of central nervous system lymphoma as a specialty is the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, about 30 minutes away from my home. So we ended up at a hospital. They did the typical MRIs and things like that, which I hated. Brain MRIs, now I've learned to accept them a little bit, but they found this giant mass in my head. And we began a stem cell transplant as the preferred procedure to hopefully get me better. At the time I was discovered, they estimated that I had 3 to 6 weeks to live. I didn't like that prognosis very much. So I kind of fought it, as I usually do things, and was able to work with Dana-Farber, and they got me into a regimen where I had a whole bunch of chemotherapy, and then that was reasonably successful in shrinking the tumor. And then I had a stem cell transplant, which was very difficult. I mean, you lose your fingernails, your toenails, you lose everything, all your hair. My tongue almost melted away. It was like a lot of strain on the body. But because I had been in reasonably good condition, as I mentioned, take care of your body, I was able to fight off the effects, the negative effects. And I have a great picture in the book about and on our website, which we'll have the way, I have a great picture of me with carrots coming out of my teeth and insisting that there were, in fact, side effects that the doctors told me don't worry about. I'm not sure they should have said don't worry about them. As you kind of believe with a wrinkle when you talk to your doctors.
Well, Steve, I just, I sit here and I do think it's God's work. But I also applaud you and honor you by your willingness to share, because I am sure that there are persons who are viewing this who have life and health challenges, maybe not similar to what you have, but whatever they are, a health challenge is a health challenge. As we talked about earlier, you're a cancer survivor, I'm a cancer survivor. I may not have had the same road pathway that you had, but nonetheless, it still is an illness that you have to overcome. So I want to thank you for sharing. And I wanted the viewing audience to hear that story, because so we don't gloss over that, yeah, you came a long way. You came a long way. And I can even recall that you had wanted to get me into mountain biking, and you had mentioned to me, and it was shortly after that, because I never went. I'm a scaredy cat. So riding over the rocks and in that back, give me the highway, that's fine. But you want to give me the back roads and the off roads, that's a whole nother thing. So we never got to do it. But nonetheless, I'm glad you're here and able to do this interview. So I know I stopped you at chapter 3 or 4. Continue on, but I wanted to do that.
Okay, well, before I continue on, let me say to anyone who has cancer, it doesn't have to be what other people think is bad. You have something that's an incredible challenge, and just do the best you can. Don't have to, you really just have to try to get a positive mindset, let yourself have down days, and just fight back. That's all. It's not about having oh, my cancer is worse than yours or anything like that. I mean, it's a debilitating disease. It really makes you think about your demise. I talk in my next book, I talk about the brothers of cancer, the fear and doubt that that sort of are always present in your mind as you try to recover. So we'll really just honor those people as well. So let me pick up from take care of your body, right, to the 4th chapter is, or I think I might be on the 5th, I'm not sure, is to embrace conflict. So one of my things, I'm a professor at Cambridge College, and I teach conflict management and negotiation. And I feel conflict management is the most important topic in the world. Because when we come into life, right, you're getting spanked on the bottom, you're screaming, you don't like where you've been just placed, you want to go back to your comfort zone. And that's how life starts. And frankly, as we dearly know in COVID-19, that's how it ends. It ends in conflict. So I think you need to devote your whole life to learning how to control and embrace conflict, because that really changes your life. How you handle conflict is the determinant for how your life turns out. And so the 5th chapter is all about embracing conflict. And I give a lot of tips in Break the Curse, so you'll be able to rethink your life and rethink all of the conflicts that you come by. And to me, it's a daily medicine, if you would, that you're entitled or have an opportunity to take conflict and turn it on its head and to become the best you can be at handling conflict. So that chapter, I think, is going to be important to a lot of people. I'll go to the next chapter, and I'll tell you a fun story. A friend of mine is a police officer, very wise, and he said he read the table of contents. He said, "This looks great, Steve." And this was when the book was in the works. He said, "But you're missing one thing." And I said, "What is it? What could it be? I've worked so hard." He said, no. What about temptations? He said, you have to resist temptations. And I had forgotten that completely when I first built out the outline for the book. Mm-hmm. And I went, oh, you're so right. And so I think we all have temptations. How do we handle our temptations? And I devoted a chapter to try and help people with temptations. And so there's a lot in chapter 6 about temptations and ways that you could think about changing that up. In chapter 7, another favorite chapter of mine.
I don't want you to forget, you have some illustrations as well that go with these chapters, so don't forget them.
All right, so
I want to let our good Michael Hammond, who is the manager of SMAC, but is serving as our producer today, and I thank you for that. He's waiting for your directive as to what to pull up, and so if any of these apply, use
Okay.
them.
Let's do that with, we had asked for the fairy dust for setting goals. Can we get that one up? Because I don't think we saw it yet. So I'll
Well,
see if
we
Mike
won't
can.
see it. He probably put that up when you spoke about it.
Oh, you did? Okay, I didn't see it on my end. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
So the next chapter after Resist Temptations is to build karma. And I feel that everyone has to do that. When we mountain bike in the trails, I make it a point every single day, whatever trail I go on, I do something. I clean off a stick, I move a branch out of the way, I maybe put up a sign for direction for the next guy. Everything I do, always try to leave things better than you find them. And I think that will build karma for you. And so I devote a chapter to that. And I think it's an important lesson. It's easy to get trapped into getting done what you have to get done. I'm a very determined guy too. And I tend to, like, oh, I'm so focused and I'm determined, I'm going to get this done. But you got to stop and say, wait a minute, what about the guy behind me? And how can I do something for that? And so that chapter is on building karma. So we have a picture of a water, sort of a ripple effect. And I think we're calling it ADVA. And if Mike can put that up there, that would be terrific. So that would be building karma. And the next chapter that we go into, I think we go from there. I'm just trying to remember the actual order of the books. I probably should have brought the chapter list with me. But we'll go to 8, which is finding your fit in life. And it's very important that you don't try to put a square peg in a round hole. And the reason that's important to me, or it's been driven home to me, is owning my own business for 45 years. People have come and gone many years, and to my era, I've put people in the wrong place too often. So I've learned that we really have to find what people's skills do well, what they do well at naturally, and try to put them in that place that they can succeed. And I consider that very heavily my responsibility, not theirs. So I think that's very important that you find your fit. And in fact, the Japanese have a word called ikigai, I-K-I-G-A-I. And what that essentially means is that learning to find your fit and how will you completely match yourself to the environment you're in. And we have a whole chapter devoted to that. The next chapter, by the way, which is just really, really a great thing, is having fun, stabilizing your life. And I'm probably better at that than any of the other things that I've done. And I mountain bike literally every day. I bike to work often. Yesterday and the day before, I biked to work from my home. It's about 5.5 miles. And so I bike in, it refreshes me. And sometimes, honestly, when I'm driving in a car, I feel disappointed. I feel like I'm not getting the fresh air. I feel like I'm not treating my body well. It really, being able to just go out there. And when it rains, I love it all the more. I think it's just, I have a friend that has a great statement. She says, make today amazing. And when you're running in the rain, you're just ignoring all that environment and saying, no, I'm going to have fun no matter what. So that's sort of an approach that I am hoping to share and break the curse. So just kind of read all these chapters.
I will echo what your friend said, because what I generally say is today is made for you. Yeah. Okay. Today is made for you. So in terms of, tomorrow's, yesterday's gone. Tomorrow's not here yet. Today is yours. So all of that fits in. I don't want to, I want to encourage folks I don't want to give them all of your tidbits of the book. I want them I don't want them to get it for free here.
No, I want them to get some. It's really important, Joe, that people need to learn this, in my view anyways. Maybe I should be more humble, but I'm okay with getting some free stuff out there if it will change their lives.
Well, I want to get them thinking. Yes.
Okay.
I don't want to, I want to give them the appetizer and then have them purchase the main meal. So that's what we're going to do here. And since I'm hosting, we're going to do it this way.
Okay.
No, because I want to get, we now have talked about your thinking of how you put the chapters together and the influences in your life which impacted that. So now I want to go to, I want to say, let's harken back 35 years ago when you were thinking about writing in the first instance. Let's talk about that thinking process, because a lot of us are frustrated writers. I have said to you earlier offline that I said to you, oh, I got 3 books in my head, and people have encouraged me to do it. Even in fact, you did. And I said, haven't put pen to paper yet. I even bought the piece where you can speak into the computer and it's supposed to write it out for you. It's sitting up there collecting dust.
Oh,
So there's a process of being an author, and I applaud you because it's not easy. So I want you to talk about that thought process, and then let's talk about how you assembled your team and the things that you went to. I want to go through the iterations on the the visual aspects in terms of the cover. I want to cover the technical aspects of that. Your thinking about being an author, your subject, to the people you assembled, to now getting ready to launch it. And I want to say your launch date is June. Folks, today is May 22nd, and I feel honored to beat the launch date, to have this interview with this distinguished author of 2 books, Steve Kelley. So Steve, walk us through that whole thought process. What makes Steve Kelley tick?
well, wow, what a great question. Thank you. So first I'll say that our website is not up yet, but it will be, breakthecursedbook.com. So you could jot that down, breakthecursedbook.com. I have a wonderful website generating person, Carissa Newell. She's doing a great job. And I have also Meredith Dunn helping me publish. And if I went this far without mentioning an editor, my editor is the best editor in the world, and she's book solid. So I don't know if I could help you with that, but her name is Carol Ramey. I really did assemble a team. It takes a lot. I mean, learning to write, you're always teaching yourself. And I would recommend this, by the way, those of you whether you're in business or not, start writing to your friends in emails. I'm not a favorite of Twitter. I'm not a favorite of Facebook. I use them. I accept them. But honestly, write every time you get a chance. Write to your son and tell him you love him. Write to your daughter, tell her you love her. Write to your sister, ask how she's doing. But write. And I think that writing starts to generate better thinking in your head. And better thinking is the initial starting piece for you recovering from whatever the obstacle you're in. So that's my advice, is to write. And then you get better. And then people will disappoint you maybe, because I had a friend that said, this stinks. And I said, okay, I better look at that again. It did stink. I had to fix it and get it better. And my editor was particularly, she had a lot of guile, I think. She was very good at getting me to redo things and doing it in a way that gave me the encouragement to keep going. So the iteration, so let me share with you that the first time I wrote the book, it was in its sort of infancy, was almost 30 or 35 years ago. I don't know the exact time. I think it was 1987-ish. And I envisioned a set of fat-bellied beans, cartoon beans, that gave advice on having a happy life. And I still have that version. And it was in a dot matrix printer, which is a dinosaur that I don't think anyone's using now. But I still have that copy, and it's very, very infantile, very, very poorly done. But it was the start. And I think that if you have the drive, like Joe, you have 3 books. I want to encourage you to really focus on the one that you feel the strongest about, so that your drive will carry you to that. And then the other 2 will follow. And I'm sure of it. So that's the advice I would give to people, is to identify. And we have a section on the book about who are you. And we tell a nice story about a monk that I listened to. And his answer to every question was, who are you? You can ask any question you want to anyone, but the answer lies in, who are you? And you'll find that delightful story in the book. So it's that kind of a thing that I want people to get back to the basics of how their own thoughts produce their results in their life. So, so let's go on from there. You wanted me to talk about a team. So the first part of the team was and actually part of it had to do with going through my love of storytelling. So that's also in the book, how I found my mentors, or they found me. And I learned to tell stories at the age of 42, which I had not had a life where they told me stories. And then I grew to just love hearing and telling stories, which I filled the book with stories. So you can, if you're a story lover, and stories are powerful and potent. When someone tells you a story, you'll remember the theme. But if they list off the themes, you might remember some things and maybe you don't. So it's very important to grasp stories and to be able to share them with other people so that they can really hold on to the learnings that are important to them.
So, Steve, you say that in getting to where you are in publishing now your second book, this isn't a process that you can just do on your own. You need experts in various areas to help you do that, and you've named some of them, and I'm sure that they're listed in your book. We'll leave that there. But even as much as the cover is something where you have to do iterations on, because as you start to think about it, and I would like to, because I see the one behind you is, in fact, the cover that is on the book, but that wasn't your first one. There were two other covers that were designed, and this one was selected by you and your team. So, Michael, if you can bring up the first cover, this is the one that has the sun in it with the dolphin on the right-hand side. This one here, if you could bring that one up and to show that one, and why don't we walk through them in succession, how those iterations were done, Steve?
Okay, so that's a delightful question because I have great answer for it. So I was hosting over at Stoughton Media Access Cable, just as you are now, and I had gone out to explore editing books in Kindle, and there was a wonderful fellow by the name of Pete Kale who I ran into, and then I brought him into the show, and he owns a company called Bloodshot Books, and we did an interview with him, and he actually was able to tell me a little bit more about how to publish a book. And so I started with him, and he had a friend, Rooster Publishing, I think it is, I'm not sure, but and he got me in touch, and he made my first cover. And then we went back and forth. I didn't like this or that, and we just improved it. But it really was the start. And I recommend this, by the way. Get any kind of a graphic artist to put a cover for you. Before you're even done writing, just get a cover so you can start to believe in your idea. The visuals really help you. And that really helped me to go, wow, I do have
the second iteration,
okay,
which was done by, I think Teresa did one of those. But in terms of, let's bring up the second iteration, which is, it starts with, at the top, it says 10 steps to a better future.
Yeah.
Break the curse. It has the sailboat in the middle and a template for change, Steve Kelley. Now, this was the second iteration of that. Right. So talk about that one.
Okay, so let's talk about a little bit about story and how you gather your team, right? So I did a little research online. I put a little request out on one of those, I forget what it's called, but you can request people to bid on things like publishing or cover work or something like that. I did that, and this wonderful lady, Meredith Dunn, returned, Freedom Press, I think it was, she returned my call, and we started talking. Before we were done, she was telling me how much trouble she was having parenting and with the kids. Not that she's having trouble, but how would I say that better? But that she's struggling with in COVID-19. How do you balance trying to take care of your kids? It's a whole new thing, and you're not working as much, and it's just crazy, right? And I said, well, let me give you 3 tips for parenting, because I had taught parenting as part of conflict management. So let me give you the 3 quick tips, all right? Number 1, consequences first, okay? Number 2, love is second. And number 3, children are not in charge. So that's it. You know those 3 things and you nail those down, and you're going to become a better parent. So the reason I tell you that story,
I don't know if I put it in that order though.
It's very important. Consequences are first. I'm telling you, most people love the heck out of their kids, but they don't deliver the consequences, and it's a mess.
Well, so, I think for me, I may reverse the third one. Children are not in charge.
Not in charge. Okay. Well, the reason I tell you that story is I was in my first conversation with my now publisher, and she reminded me in many conversations after, she said, I remember what you said. It really helped me. And so telling those little stories that, they make a difference in how you can get your team together. And she actually hooked me up with the person who's doing the covers now. And so keeping that having the same ethos with people, being able to share stories helped me to create the best team. And I have a really wonderful team now, including a publicist. I have the wonderful website work that Carissa's doing, and Carissa is actually a very dear friend of Meredith's. So we very quickly we assembled a team that is working to launch our book.
And the cover behind you is the one. That's the cover of the book, Break the Curse: A Template for Change by Steve Kelley. As you can see, bright sunshine, sailboat, the dolphin is there.
Yes.
All the elements, the 10 steps to restart your life. Right. Now, Steve, I've so enjoyed this, and this is probably a first for both you and me for Community Forum. I've lost track of time. I have no idea how much time we spent. I don't know if we spent an hour or a day or whatever. Maybe Michael will go in the chat and let me know what it is. But I'm going to bring us to a close, because I want to close with you talking about. Well, let's promote your first book as well. One which you did with your granddaughter.
Yep.
One which I had the pleasure then too, in order to interview you and she with about, and then talk about your book that you are writing now. And I think at that point in time, I'll let you close with what you deem as being important, and we'll get out of folks' way.
Okay. Well, thank you, Joe. So the first book that was The Fox Who Sneezed, I did with my granddaughter. It was a wonderful union of very diverse ages. I think she was 6, and I asked her to envision a book, and we wrote it.
Well, folks, in this age of virtual, this will happen, and certainly I see that Steve has forgot to wiggle the mouse, and so he is not with us right now. But I'm going to continue on and just tell you a little bit more, because I was there. He did the book, The Fox Who Sneezed with his granddaughter. It was a great children's book that was produced. Steve has devoted his life to being able to tell stories. As he said, you remember the stories, you may not remember in terms of all the chapter titles, but something may resonate with you. It's just like when he was talking about what one should do in child rearing, consequences. First, loving. Second, children are not in charge. Well, you can take any one of those 3 and reverse them as it suits your circumstances. As you see, I said to him, children are not in charge. I have 2 children. They're elders. Themselves, they are grown, but nonetheless, that was a responsibility that I saw as a parent, was to nurture them and to teach them, and to certainly there were consequences for actions that you had taken. But the other thing that we want to talk about today was to give you the thinking that Steve had in terms of writing these books. It takes a lot to be an author. It's not an easy task. You got to have the discipline. You got to have the know-how. You got to surround yourself with a team. And oftentimes it takes a lot of time. And then lastly, as you heard, there were the health challenges that Steve experienced. And he's come out on the other side. He's back to his vibrant self. He has always been a committed individual, helpful to others, very thoughtful, not selfish. And hopefully that comes through in his writing, but I can say that personally as a friend. I'm hopeful that he will be able to join us again, for this, because I would have liked to have closed with him being on the program. But we'll wait a few moments in order to do that. But what I can encourage you to do is, this is at least the cover of the book. It'll soon, he's going to have the launch next month, June. But this is the cover. I'm hopeful that is right side up, because it's showing differently for me. But it's called Break the Curse: A Template for Change, 10 Steps to Restart Your Life. Hopefully you will look for this book. And support Steve. If you want to get his first book, Fox Who Sneezed, that is, as well, would be a great purchase, particularly for our young people, and to do that. So I I'm going to wait a few more moments here in order to see if Steve is able to get back on, but I want to thank each and every one of you who have watched this program. As I stated at the top of the program, this is the inaugural virtual program by SMAC, and I'm pleased that Steve and I, as host of Community Forum, are able to do that. So what I'd like to do is to say thank you for joining us. I know that Steve is appreciative of you viewing as well, and I wish you Godspeed and great health. Be safe during this time. Pay attention to the science, not the politicians. Take care of your health and be well.